Today I'm going to introduce you the new Peux 2024 Fulgor flyreel. Previously, the Fulgor was this. Now, the Fulgor is this. So the big differences are obvious. First, there's the brake. On the first model, the brake was simply a small knob inside the spool. Now, it's something that's much easier to use, that stands out slightly. It means that in terms of use and adjustment, it's much easier to use. You can also see that the logo has been placed in the direction of the road. Previously, it was perpendicular to the road, so visually it's still a little nicer. You also see that the trigger has been lengthened and perforated, and it's now available in the color of the frame. By the way, for the Fulgor, Peux offers 12 different colors. Of course, you can also have 12 colors for the different spools. Here too, we've come up with a new design for the spool that's a little more contemporary, a little more dynamic, since if I compare it with the new previous spools, we have something a little more sober. Of course, the previous generation spool is still compatible with the new models. In other words, if you have a new Fulgor, you can steal your first generation spool. There's absolutely no problem. And then there's a little novelty that some anglers don't really know about. On the first model, there was a small plastic piece of rubber, a little area of plastic or a kind of hard rubber that allowed the nylon to be trapped between the two little parts. When you didn't have flies at the end of the road, allowed you to hook the line onto the reel. It used to be a trail seat. Now it's at trigger level, which is much easier to access and therefore much simpler to use when you're fishing or moving along rivers. That's it for the part that changed on the reel. What's left? We still have the product quality that's the hallmark of Peux. These products are life guaranteed. Their ease of use is absolutely fabulous. You can have reels with or without the handle for winding by hand. I must admit that what really appealed to me about this reel was the ability to retrieve line very quickly, but also to use it like a classic fly reel with the fish fighting directly by hand. And then there's a brake that really is tried and tested brake. The brake can no longer be promoted. So that's the part that concerns the new generation Fulgor. I mentioned hand rewinding. Well, let's make the difference. Exactly what does it mean? Is it automatic or manual rewinding? I made a small mark at the end of my silk, which is a small orange mark, and I made another mark on the silk, a black spot. So, first of all, let's take a look at what it looks like when you make the line of your traditional reel. Even though some reel ranges to compensate for not having the speed of automatic reels, have exaggeratedly widened the spool to make extra large arbor reels, which means that one turn of the crank on a conventional reel, you make half or 3/4 of a turn on a very large arbor. Exagérément élargi la bobine pour faire des extra larges arbors, ce qui permet sur un tour de manivelle sur un moulinet classique de faire la moitié ou les 3/4 d'un tour sur un très large arbor. That's it. To recover the line I've taken out, you have to do all this handling before you can really wind up the whole line. Now, let's see how it works semi-automatically. Voilà, donc si maintenant je veux comparer ce que ça donne, je vais toujours aller à cette marque noire. Gone up to black spot. The little mark on the silk is there. Automatically, here is what it does. When you're fishing, you don't have the line dangling between your legs, in the pedals, in the branches. You're in immediate contact with the fish, and that's something that, with practice, you don't do without. something that with practice has become almost indispensable. In fact, when I use manual reels, I sometimes reach for the trigger just to retrieve. So much for the Fulgor reel. Now let's move on the other new products in the range, which are small spools for Euro nymph fishing. Previously, the spool designed by Peux was extremely wide, precisely because we don't use much line for Euro nymph fishing. The range has really been revisited, as today we have a spool that is a little deeper. Here, for example, on this spool, I have a complete fly line number 1, and then 12 meters of tapering thread in 4 different colors, and then a small piece of tippet. It's a V-shaped structure, which means you have something that allows more line on your spool and less line to escape from the reel. And it's really quite an interesting advance for Euro nymphing, being able to have this new spool on your Fulgor. Another interesting new feature is an accessory that attaches directly to the reel. I'll show you how it works. It's relatively simple. The little accessory comprises stainless steel moving parts and rigid parts. The idea is to be able to position the steel removal part first, then clip the rigid part on the frame, and you end up with a very useful line guide when you're nymphing. What's more, the line guide can be positioned exactly where you want on the reel. So that's very interesting. What's more, this wire guide is compatible with both current and early versions, always on the same principle. I choose black because I use a reel in this color. I'll be using my black reel since I use a Fulgor I spool for Euro nymphing. It's a useful accessory that's also available in 12 colors, so you can always match the line guide to the color of your reel, if you wish. Here is for this year's main new features. I hope you will take advantage of it if you have the chance. And of course, good fishing to all.